لكن تحديت الظروف وخضتها وحدي صبورا مستعينا بالصلاة. كم مرة عصف الأنين بداخلي، كم مرة قد ذاق قلبي من أسى محن تمر، وكم كرهت مصابها.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. ما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Following on from my video that I released just under 2 weeks ago, the disinformation from our brother Knowledge North, Hadahullah wa Iyana. And whoever hasn't watched it, the card's going to be there somewhere. Just click it and watch part 1. This is a follow-up, part 2. What I want to add is this. I'm going to touch on my future videos more, in connection to the forefather of ISIS, Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. And the Salafis of today are living in absolute denial. They know he's the forefather of ISIS, but I will comment on that at the end, okay, to obviously highlight what videos I've got planned. So without further ado, let's watch our brother Knowledge North, and we'll come back to you with more information to show you his disinformation. Have a watch.
Textualizing the reports and evaluating the mined data for textual and theological integrity. Otherwise, we are guilty of what Shiites do when they manipulate historical reports in isolation of the principles of the Sunnah. Take, for example, this entry from Dhahabi's biographical encyclopedia, Sir A'lam al-Nubala. The names of the notables bookending the entry are familiar, but who are these Mirdas, Nafi and Tawaf characters? Prominent Kharijite rebel commanders. Can any ruling on rebellion be established of such an unlikely conglomerate? The Khawarij along with the illustrious companions, Al-Hussein and Abdullah ibn Zubair? Of course it can't, any more than heroes can be equated with villains. And nor is that what Dhahabi wants from us. One may as well bring a fabricated narration such as this one, which comes to us by way of the well-known liar Waqidi, in order to accuse Hussein of behaving treacherously to an imam he did not recognize, as if he had not been misled into believing he had an ummah in Iraq, ready and waiting to hail him as the imam. In truth, the problem with the anarchists accessing history goes beyond his disregard for detail. Not only does he not know what he's reading, he doesn't know how to read. He sees the word khuruj adjacent to the name of a major Sahabi and thinks he has found a smoking gun. His shallow comprehension of the words in front of him misleads him to use the trials of the companions to inadvertently cast aspersions on their character, to insinuate they knowingly and deliberately defied the explicit sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So you heard our brother Knowledge North make his contentions known, and we'll comment on that in just a second. We'll go into both of those passages, or both of those books rather, and show you his disinformation. And we've got more Knowledge North. Honestly, you make a habit of just placing the book cover and just the passages that you want people to look at. Let me tell you something. You're an Asian like myself, right? And Arabic's not our mother tongue. But I assure you, my Arabic level is enough for me to access those works and read them. Okay, I can assure you about that. Now, before I go into the passages, let me make one thing clear. That Salafis, no matter what spectrum, whether they're from the Halabites, the Jordanian Salafis, as Brother Hijab likes to call them, you got the Hajurites in Yemen, and then you got the Madakhila, and then you've got the, different strands, let's say. No matter how much tick for tack they've got, they all would unite under the spiritual forefather of ISIS, Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, and the early Da'wat al-Najdiyah. And it's just shocking that they believe that Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, would actually be with them if he was here today. Let me tell you something. Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab wouldn't even look at you. If anything, you probably legitimize your blood. That's the irony of it, right? Our brother Knowledge Note doesn't present its full context. He just shows you the book cover like I mentioned, and then he adds a little passage that he wants you to be aware of. He don't quote what was before, he doesn't show the page, etc. And that's quite deliberate. So let's go into it now. So as you can see, this is the actual passage. Okay, this is the passage which he goes, it's a fabricated report. Okay, the statement from Imam al-Dhahabi in his Sirah A'lam al-Nubala, we're going to get to that. So a little correction from me. This passage here, for whatever reason, when I was responding to Abdurrahman Hassan in Trainwreck Part 1 and 2, I got Part 3 to come as well. I thought that this was from Tahdib al-Kamal fi Asma al-Rijal wa Hafidh al-Mizzi, but it's not. This is from Tarikh al-Islam from Imam al-Dahabi, this particular passage here. It's in other books as well. It's in Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya and others. But Knowledge Lord said it's a fabricated report from the well-known liar Al-Waqidi or Waqidi. We'll see now if this is actually fabricated. Okay, because if you look at the chain, which I'm going to show you after, how is he declared this as fabricated? So here's the chain of narrators now. So you can see the passage, which, let me read out the passage. It mentioned that Abu Sa'id said that Hussein radiallahu anhu overpowered me ala al-khuruj, to go out and do khuruj. But that's fine, you know. Let's say he overpowered him to go out. Okay? And I said to him, fear Allah, and, you know, resort back to your house. وَلَا تَخْرُجْ عَلَى إِمَامِكَ. Do not rebel against your leader. عَلَى إِمَامِكَ. Okay, there you go. And then it says, and they also spoke to him, meaning Jabir bin Abdullah wa Abu Waqid al-Laythi, and other than them too as well. Now, let's go through the chain of narrators. So you got Al-Waqidi. Al-Waqidi now is narrating this. Now, as I said before, he's accepted in history, he's accepted in Maghazi, in battles, and he's accepted in Hawadith Ayyam al-Nas, meaning the events of the people. This is a history book. This is from Tarikh al-Islam. That's what Dahabi is presented. He's accepted in other books as well, like Ibn Kathir in his Bidayah wa Nihaya, and other books as well, which we'll probably show you later if we've got the time. Look, let's go through the chain of narrators now. Al-Waqidi. حدثني عبد الله بن جعفر المخرمي. Okay? Who is this individual? Okay, because he said fabricated. You can't reject the chain because of Al-Waqidi. We've already proven, because this is Tarikh. Okay, this is Tarikh and Hawadith Ayyam al-Nas. So as you can see on screen, we've got the book Sirah A'lam Nubala by Imam al-Dahabi, his encyclopedia, like he said. So as you can see on screen, we've got 140 Al-Makhrami. Who is Al-Makhrami? Al-Makhrami is Al-Imamu. He's an Imam. He's Al-Muhaddith. He is Al-Muhaddith. Al-Allama. He's an Allama. And then he's got his name Abu Muhammad Abdullah bin Ja'far bin Abdul Rahman, the son of who? The companion of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Al-Miswara bin Makhrama. Now, Miswara bin Makhrama did khuruj with Abdullah bin Zubair. I will show you it as the video goes on. Miswara bin Makhrama did khuruj against Hajjaj bin Yusuf, and he was the one as well that told Hussein anhu not to do khuruj, but he did khuruj himself. Anyway, so who narrated from him? Okay, so he's got obviously the people that he narrated hadith from, and he narrated from his father, etc., etc. But then what I'm focusing on is who narrated from him. Imam Dahabi mentions Abdurrahman bin Mahdi. Abdurrahman bin Mahdi was the one that narrated from him. Okay, Al-Makhrami. And who else? Wa Muhammad bin Umar Al-Waqidi. Al-Waqidi also narrated from him as well. Okay, Al-Waqidi also narrated from him. But like I said before, he needs to prove that this report is fabricated, because if you go throughout the history books, no one commented from the Mu'arrikhun or the Muhaddithun that said this chain is fabricated, because I'm sure they must have alluded to it, right? If Al-Waqidi's reports in terms of Tarikh al-Hadith, of course, we've already proved that. But other Muhaddithun praised him. So there's Jarh wa Ta'dil, as I mentioned in part 1. Now Imam Dahabi rahmatullah alayhi comments, says, قُلْتُ كَيْفَ يُتْرَكْ, like how is he left? Because basically a group from amongst the Jama'ah used him, you know, as evidence. And except for Bukhari, and he has been declared trustworthy like Ahmed. Okay? So coming back to me now. That Knowledge North claimed that the report is fabricated. The words that he used, fabricate report. We want to know now, because I'm going to show you who else was in the chain, how this report is fabricated. If you're saying because of Al-Waqidi, I've already proved in the history he's accepted. It's in hadith where he's questionable. Not in history, not Hawadith Ayyam al-Nas. So even though Waqidi is in the chain, you cannot say it's fabricated, because that's strong words. So Al-Makhrami, he's in the chain. He's trustworthy. Okay, he's trustworthy. Who else is in the chain? Now, the second person in the chain is Abi Aun. Now, he is Abdullah bin Aun bin Abi Aun. Okay? And Imam al-Dahabi mentions that this individual is a what? Is an Imam al-Muhaddith al-Abid. Okay? So, he is an Imam, a Muhaddith, a Zahid, and a worshipper. So, this man's accepted. Obviously, Imam Muslim narrated from him. And he also mentions that he was from amongst the Abdal, you know, the Abdals. Basically, coming back to me now, right? Coming back to me. So there you go. We've got that cleared now, that this chain is not fabricated, okay? Unless you could present to me now from the scholars, because you said this is mawdu', this is fabricated, you need to show me now that this report from Tariq is fabricated. Which alim from amongst the ulama has preceded you in saying this is fabricated, this is mawdu'? I've presented you ulama from part 1 saying al-Waqid is accepted, okay? In Tariq is accepted. I've presented many of the muhaddithun. You haven't presented any, mate. And this is a pattern I've noticed. It's a lot of your own opinions. You've got vast knowledge in history, I have to give you that. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. But when it comes to these matters, mate, your disinformation won't be accepted. Now, the second part was the statement in Imam al-Dahabi's Sira A'lam Nubala. And you said, look at the names mentioned with Hussein radiallahu anhu, etc., etc. So let's go into that. So as you can see on screen, we've got the book Sira A'lam Nubala by Imam al-Dahabi. And as you can see, he mentions, and I want to make this quick, he mentions that he opened his state with the killing of the martyr Hussein radiallahu anhu. And he ended it with the event of Al-Harra. And the people hated him. And you notice, knowledge north and share this. So he says the people hated him and he wasn't blessed with a long life. Now look what he says. Subhanallah al-Azim. He states, وَخَرَجَ عَلَيْهِ غَيْرُ وَاحِدٍ بَعْدَ الْحُسَيْنِ. That more than one rebelled against Yazid after Hussein radiallahu anhu rebelled against Yazid. كَهْلَ الْمَدِينَةِ قَامُوا لِلَّهِ. That the people of Medina who rose for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Najm already admits that they did khuruj. And as I mentioned in the video, as you can see a card up there, that Abdurrahman Hassan, Da'aman, Shamsi, our brother Nigel, all have different stances. So it's a manhaj of convenience, as I mentioned before. Then he mentions also Mirdas, wa Nafi' bin al-Azraq, Tawaf bin al-Mu'alla al-Sudusi, wa Ibn Zubair bi Mecca. Okay, so he mentioned all of these. And he's arguing, well, hold on here, how is it that we could use this as evidence that Hussein radiallahu anhu, right, rebelled, and also, it's put with Khariji commanders, okay? So knowledge knows is arguing, how is it that Hussein radiallahu anhu was mentioned by Imam al-Dahabi and Zubair radiallahu anhu was mentioned and the people of Medina mentioned, but also the Khawarij, meaning Khariji rebels, are also mentioned. How is it, and don't worry, we'll get into scholars that agree with us to show you that they used the rebellion of Hussein, okay, because you think it's creed, that based on the actions of, Hussein radiallahu anhu, who did khuruj, who rebelled against their ruler, based on the ijtihad, and he's from amongst the people of truth, and the Hanabila confirm it, and we'll get to that as well. When the companions rebelled, they rebelled based on the ijtihad. They did not rebel based on takfir. They did not hold the rulers to be kuffar, because Hussein radiallahu anhu did not rebel against the ruler because of kufr. And the hadith of Ubadah bin Samit, where he says illa tara kufrun buwahan, Imam Nawawi in his Sharh, and I presented it, he says المراد بالكفر هنا معصية, that the intent of the kufr that is mentioned here, إلا ترى كفر بواحا, it means معصية, and I presented it in other videos. So there is a distinction, my friend. There is a distinction, because the Khawarij, when they rebelled based on takfir, based on their batil, manhaj, and they deemed the blood of the Muslim rulers and even the Muslims at large to be permissible, when the companions didn't. They rebelled because of the zulm, the fisq, the jawr, and they based their understanding based on text, which we've already proven, and then on top of that, the assessment and the capabilities, the shawka, quwwa, and mana. Total distinction. But now what I'm going to do is, because you said, how can you prove it? Imam Dahabi showed you that Hussein radiallahu anhu did khuruj, and Abdullah bin Zubair did khuruj, which you don't accept, and many of the Salafis don't accept, and the people of Medina did khuruj, but you accept that, so you're all over the place. And then the Khawarij did khuruj as well. We're not denying that, but you can't connect the two together and say, oh, because the Khawarij did it, now because anyone that does khuruj is following the Khawarij. No, it doesn't work like that. And this is what you're trying to pass off to your people. We are not like the Khawarij. The Khawarij, when they did khuruj, did it because of takfir, khalas, because we don't believe khuruj is a matter of creed, and it's based on power and capability, etc. And it's ijtihadiyya, furu'iyya, and the ones who do it are not Khawarij, because there's a group of people called Bughat, and they don't mention that. Up until I brought this out, they didn't want to mention that, just Khariji, etc., etc. But it's all changed. I'm going to show you an alim who deduced from the khuruj of Hussein that it's okay to rebel against the tyrannical rulers. So you said, how is it possible? This man wrote a book that even Imam al-Dahabi mentioned that it was the largest book ever written. And you're trying to tell me he didn't know, that Hussein radiallahu anhu did not give bay'ah? You're insulting the ulama. Let's carry on. So as you can see on screen, we've got Kitab al-Furu', the subsidiaries by Ibn Muflih. He's not the scholar though. I'll show you who he is. Jawwaza Ibn al-Aqil. This is a scholar who wrote the biggest book known to man, according to Imam al-Dhahabi. We'll get to that later. So Ibn al-Aqil permitted, and Ibn al-Jawzi, al-khuruj ala imamin ghayri adilin, that Ibn al-Aqil and Ibn al-Jawzi saw it permissible to rebel against an imam who is not just. Now obviously you take in everything into consideration, your power, your capabilities, whether you got the means, etc, etc. But it's a mas'ala dhanniya furu'iyya. This is Kitab al-Furu', Knowledge North. And he says, what did both of them mention, Ibn Aqil and Ibn al-Jawzi? Giants, allama, massive scholars, big scholars. What did they use as evidence? Because now they said it's permissible to do khuruj against an imam that's unjust. But what did they use as proof? What did they say? وَذَكَرَ خُرُوجَ الْحُسَيْنِ عَلَى يَزِيدٍ لِإِقَامَةِ الْحَقِّ. It mentions that both of them used as evidence the rebellion of Hussein radiallahu anhu. Al-Hussein radiallahu anhu, they used his rebellion against Yazid to establish the truth. Okay, to what? Establish the truth. Okay, subhanAllah, coming back to me now. So there you go. So you said, how can you use Hussein radiallahu anhu as khuruj to base your understanding that it's permissible to rebel against an unjust ruler? It's not us.
Take for example this entry from Dhahabi's biographical encyclopedia, Sir A'lam al-Nubala. The names of the notables bookending the entry are familiar, but who are these Mirdas, Nafi and Tawaf characters? Prominent Kharijite rebel commanders. Can any ruling on rebellion be established of such an unlikely conglomerate? The Khawarij along with the illustrious companions, Al-Hussein and Abdullah ibn Zubair? Of course it can't.
It's classical Hanabila scholars. Let's leave this neo-Salafi garbage to one side here. Ibn al-Aqil and Ibn al-Jawzi. Who is Ibn al-Aqil? Who is Ibn al-Aqil? Okay? Watch this. As you can see on screen, we've got the book Tariq al-Islam. So going back to Tariq al-Islam again by Imam al-Dhahabi. Imam al-Dhahabi comments now, as you can see with the arrows over, and he says, Lahu Kitab al-Funun. The book's name was Al-Funun. He has a book called Al-Funun. And what does Imam al-Dhahabi says? Lam yusanni fi dunya akbaru minhu. That there is not a book in the world that is bigger than this book. And they're saying that it was roughly about 300 volumes. Some went as far as saying 800. The book is lost. Okay, the book is lost. Majority of it. Now as you can see on screen, we've got Kitab al-Funun. This is what's remaining, and it shows you the manuscript of this particular book. What did Ibn Hajar say about Ibn al-Aqil? As you can see on screen, we've got the book Lisan al-Mizan by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. And Ibn Hajar, rahmatullah alayhi, mentions that this man is one of the major imams. And yes, he was a Mu'tazili. But then he testified upon himself to make tawbah, and he corrected his tawbah. And then he produced works refuting them. And the people of his era praised him and those after him. And Ibn al-Jawzi, okay, basically relied on his works, okay, in a lot of his books. He relied on Ibn al-Aqil. This is the man who we're talking about, Ibn al-Aqil. So Knowledge North, this man who has wrote the biggest book, according to Imam Dhahabi, that the world has ever seen, up to 300 volumes, he was not aware that Hussein radiallahu anhu did not give bay'ah to his imam. He used the khuruj of Hussein radiallahu anhu as proof that you could rebel against an unjust ruler. And not just me, Imam Dhahabi confirmed as well that he rebelled. And more than one rebelled against Yazid. Yazid didn't do, there was no kufr coming from Yazid. Okay? Ibn al-Khaldun also said, I've done videos about it. I've presented the evidence. I've noticed a lot of Salafis, right, because Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab is their spiritual godfather, it's coming to the point now where cognitive dissonance is on display. You know this deep down, that Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab is the forefather of ISIS. And if you look at his life and his actions and his politically motivated takfir, it's clear as night and day. What we're finding is resistance from the plastic Salafis, the neo-Najdis, because they can't accept that we are calling out extremism. And they have run with this for so long, especially in the West. And we are releasing information week after week. I've released Takfiri Tendencies Part 3, which has nearly got 14,000 views. I've released Chain Takfir 1 and 2, and I've got a whole playlist, as you can see, where the card is, showing proof after proof after proof. No problem. Criticize my Arabic. Go for it. That doesn't change the fact that Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab and the information that we've released, he is the forefather of radicalism and extremism. If he was alive today, let me tell you something. Let me make it clear to you boxheads, right? To you Neo-Salafis. Defending Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, he would absolutely be leading ISIS if he was here today. You know this. Why are you playing games? And let me ask a question to you. This is now that we're on the topic, right? Even though this is, responding to Knowledge Law, the disinformation that he released, but I'm just sort of, making a point because future videos will be touching on this topic. Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, the forefather of ISIS, excommunicated scholars who just criticized him. And subsequently, because those scholars were from certain areas, right? Not just one, not just two, not just three, not just four. Wait for my video. This is going to be a prelude to Takfiri Tendencies Part 4. So I'm going to build up gradually and then get into Takfiri Tendencies Part 4. You look at my playlist of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. Thousands of tens of thousands of people, 20s, 30s, have watched this playlist. The shift, the momentum is coming in our favor. You can criticize me as much as you want. I'm an Athari, right? And I believe Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab is a forefather of ISIS. I'm going to shrug my shoulders because it's just so funny to see these plastic Najdees, these pseudo-Salafis defend Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. Whereas, let's add another point. Let's add some fuel to the fire. If he was around today, Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab and his bandits, just were teleported from 12th century Arabia and we're now in the 21st century, who would they join? Who would they be with? Would they be with MBS? Would they be with your despot rulers of today? Or would they be with Daesh and Boko Haram and all of them? You tell me. Be honest. Place your hand on your heart, right, and ask yourself that question. Who would he be with? He would be with Daesh. He would be with ISIS. He would be with all these extremist groups. You've deviated from his original methodology. You don't follow his methodology and his da'wah. You follow a bastard version. You follow a heretical version. That's why you've been very shrewd and haven't translated Tariq al-Najwa al-Numan al-Majd, right? I get it. You were smart. But as I said, those videos will come out. I've got the Athari Creed series. I've got plenty of videos. Walillahi alhamdu minna. I'm trying to give back to the ummah. I'm trying to stop this, notion of blind fanaticism and sectarianism and cultism. We have a beautiful religion, a moderate religion. And this ain't, trying to borrow terminology from, the Gharb, trying to appease them. No, we are a religion that is moderate. We don't fall into extremes. And likewise, we're not, lackadaisy where, everything goes. No, we have a beautiful religion and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with it. But unfortunately, we're finding many of those who had a set narrative, and now we are challenging that set narrative and the status quo. Naturally, we will have opposition and sheep that will be attacking us, but it's fine. The more you try to attack, the more we will come back. We'll see if you keep up with me, right? So take care of yourselves.
ليس الغريب غريب الشام واليمن إن الغريب غريب اللحد والكفن إن الغريب له حق لغربته على المقيمين في الأوطان والسكن سفر بعيد وزاد لن يبلغني وقوتي ضعفت والموت يطلبني ما أحلم الله عني حيث أمهلني وقد تماديت في ذنبي ويسترني تمر ساعة